The Ultra Beasts are some ultra weird Pokemon. Seriously, even by the standards of unusual Pokemon, these guys are freaky. This bizarreness makes them inherently hard to understand and shrouds them in a veil of unknowability. So today, I want to help with that by explaining all 11 Ultra Beasts. Let's get started with UB01 Symbiont or Nihilego. Nihilego is undoubtedly the Ultra Beast that we have seen the most of, just because of the role it played in the original Sun and Moon. As its moniker suggests, this Ultra Beast will always attempt to establish a symbiotic relationship with the person that will act as its host. It attaches directly to its victim's head, and while attached, Nihilego will flood their body with a neurotoxin that boosts their capabilities to a high degree. This makes the victim feel extremely excited and removes any inhibitions the host might have, in some cases making them more irrational and irritable. It basically gives them meth. Aside from this neurotoxin though, it doesn't manipulate its host in any way, and any actions they take are their own. At this point in time, we don't actually know exactly why Nihilego creates these symbiotic relationships, at least not in the games or anime which have their own canons. In the manga, it's established that Nihilego feeds on those with worry or anxiety, which implies that its neurotoxin allows these emotions to be harvested. Once a Nihilego detaches, its neurotoxins can make its former hosts feel ill. Nihilego also has the ability to fully merge with its host under certain conditions that we don't currently know. This is what we see happen to Lusamine, and it seems to have a similar effect to Nihilego's regular symbiotic relationship, but pushed a bit farther, as the beast had some way to give Lusamine's Pokemon an aura boost similar to the kind the Ultra Beasts get. We don't get to fight Nihilego directly while it's in this form, but once we defeat Lusamine in battle, the legendary of the games steps in and gets them separated. Nihilego is also one of the Ultra Beasts that have a unique environment or planet that we get to visit, and it's the only Ultra Beast whose environment we get to visit in both the original and Ultra games. It resides in the Ultra Deep Sea, an area that mimics the deep sea by creating luminescent colors in an otherwise pitch black background. It also happens to have one of my favorite soundtracks in all of Pokemon. Like all Ultra Beasts, Nihilego has the ability Beast Boost, which will raise the Pokemon's highest stat by one stage when it directly faints another Pokemon. When determining which stat to raise, Beast Boost does not account for stat changes resulting from status conditions, held items, or stat stages, but does include some other move-based changes like Power Split, Speed Swap, Power Trick, Wonder Room, and Guard Split. We do not know how this ability would interact with the effects of the Treasures of Ruin, as they have never been in a game together. If two stats are tied in value, only one stat will increase, and it is prioritized in the order of the stats. So if your speed and attack stats are tied, your attack stat will be raised. Nihilego is interesting because it's one of the few Ultra Beasts who can have different stats raised based on how it's trained, as both its special attack and special defense are pretty close. So if you put more training into special attack, it will be the boosted stat, but if you do more with special defense, it will be boosted instead. Next is UB02 Absorption or Buzzwole. Buzzwole is a swole bug that gets swoller. It can strengthen itself by absorbing energy, which causes a chemical reaction in its body, which causes it to grow more muscles. And when I say that, I don't mean in the way that humans build muscles where they get bigger and denser. No, for Buzzwole, they just get denser, to the point that they can even be stronger than steel. Its constant flexing is a method of communication it uses. However, it's unclear what the exact nature is. Some reports say it is boasting, while others say it could be threatening. In the Ultra games, we get a look at Buzzwole's home world, and it basically just lives in a jungle made of trees that are flexing. This begs the question, what is the biological advantage that has caused both Buzzwole and these trees to become so focused on flexing? Like, it's one thing for either Buzzwole or the trees to be flexing, but the fact they're both flexing insinuates there's a good reason to be flexing on this planet. Is it Buzzwole itself? Like, did Buzzwole plant this whole jungle in a basic form of agriculture just because the trees are flexing? Or is there an additional biological advantage to flexing on this planet? We will probably never know, and the realistic answer is that the Pokemon Company just thought it would be funny for the flexing bug to live on a planet of flexing trees. But it's still interesting to think about. Buzzwole will almost always have its Beast Boost go to its attack stat. While its attack and defense are equal, with a little EV training, the attack stat will be higher, and it is the more useful of the two for the Mosquito. Interestingly, Interestingly, Buzzwole isn't the only Ultra Beast with the classification of UB02, as there is also Pheramosa. These two share a classification because each one is exclusive to either Sun or Moon, with Buzzwole being exclusive to Sun and Pheramosa being exclusive to Moon. The duo even share a typing, but that's about where the similarities end. Rather than being a buff, steamy mosquito man, Pheramosa is a really fast, canonically sexy bug lady. Her exact classification is UB02 Beauty, and she was given this distinction because she can basically subjugate any opponent she faces with her looks. I'm not even kidding. Most opponents who face off against her become confused and lose their will to fight because of her beauty. Scientists believe this might be the result of some sort of pheromone she produces, but they haven't been able to develop concrete evidence for such a substance. But beauty isn't the only defining factor for Pheramosa. She also has her speed. She apparently has the ability to accelerate to over 120 miles per hour in an instant. While running in Alola, she refuses to touch anything in this world because she finds it to be unclean, which is fair. This emphasis on speed is reflected directly in her stat spread, as her speed is the highest stat she possesses, although her attack and special attack are also quite good. As I'm sure you can tell, she is the traditional glass cannon. While it is possible to get her beast boost on either of her attacking stats, I think most players forego this opportunity, instead going for a max speed stat, as she is most often played as a pivot Pokemon, meaning a Pokemon that wants to switch in and out often. As a result of the constant switching, the beast boost resets pretty often, so having maximum speed is more advantageous than trying to set her up to be like a sweeper or something. In the Ultra games, Pheramosa lives on the Ultra Desert, which is actually the only Ultra Space environment that requires ride Pokemon to traverse, as you need Machamp's Strength and Mudsdale's Gallop to get to her. It's also one of the most alien-feeling Ultra Space locations in my opinion. This bizarre desert with bright blue gems and streaks in the sand, it just doesn't feel like anything on Earth in a really cool way. Pheramosa is most likely inspired by a cockroach, and interestingly, she actually has a cockroach named after her, the Nocticola pheromosa, which was discovered in Singapore and named in 2023. Next is UB03 Lightning, or Xurkitree. But before we illuminate Xurkitree, please consider subscribing. Only 5% of my viewers are subscribed at the time of recording, which means if you're watching right now, there's a 95% chance you are not subscribed. 95%. Do you know how absurdly low that is? Most people who do sub shows like this talk about how 40 to 50% of their viewers are not subscribed, not 95. So if you're enjoying this video, especially if you've enjoyed a number of my videos, please subscribe. It would really mean a lot to me. Xurkitree is basically an electric eel. It has an organ that can generate electricity, and its wire-like anatomy allows it to conduct said electricity easily. It can discharge up to 1 million volts of electricity in one go, and once it runs low on energy, it can essentially burrow its plug-like feet into the ground and then absorb electricity from the earth. This is something that's always confused me about Xurkitree, because as far as I'm aware, the earth itself is not electrified. On its home planet, this behavior makes sense, as the Ultra plant is obviously teeming with electricity, but Earth is dirt and rock and water, all of which are generally insulators, meaning they don't conduct electricity well. So how can it pull electricity from the ground? Does it just wait for a lightning strike and act like a lightning rod or something? Considering it can generate electricity itself, maybe when it burrows in, it just goes to sleep to charge or something. Who knows, honestly. As I already mentioned, Xurkitree's home world is the Ultra plant, which is a world that basically looks like it's been taken over by cables. In reality though, I believe these are pieces of a massive Xurkitree, as we can see other Xurkitree in the background of this world that look absolutely enormous. The Ultra plant is also unique because it's the only Ultra Beast area that has items in it, as there are 6 Thunderstones hidden around the small area we walk on. As for its beast boost, it is going to go to its special attack. There is not a single other stat that you could even get a beast boost on if you tried. Not that there's any other stat you would want to boost anyway. In case it wasn't obvious, Xurkitree is an electric type. UB04 is another classification communication with two Ultra Beasts, Blaster and Blade. Blaster is Celesteela, the rocket ship plant Pokemon. Celesteela spends a large portion of its life acting as a plant, seemingly growing out of the ground and using the energy and nutrients in the soil to propel its growth even further. This energy is then converted into a flammable gas within Celesteela, but the exact chemical reaction remains unknown. Once the beast reaches a certain size and power, it will start using the rockets on its arms and bottom to fly around, often using them for battle as well. Eventually, Celesteela will launch itself into space using these rockets, but where it ultimately ends up is not known to us at this point. The beast originates from the Ultra Crater, a planet that resembles a weird sulfuric hot spring. It has a number of root-like pipes sticking out of the ground and has these spires that are sticking up directly next to the geysers. I believe these are actually baby Celesteela, but there's no evidence to support this aside from the fact that we see no other life forms on this planet, and the spikes kind of look like the heads of Celesteela. Celesteela is one of the few Ultra Beasts that have a lot of flexibility in terms of where its Beast Boost can go, as its stats are pretty evenly spread. From what I can tell, most people use it to buff up one of its defensive stats because Steel Flying is a great defensive typing, but there's nothing stopping you from using the Beast Boost on an offensive stat either. The only place you're not going to use it is speed, because its speed stat is so low, and obviously HP, because HP doesn't scale with Beast Boost or stat stages in general. The other UB04 is the Grass Steel type Kartana. Kartana is a monster despite its tiny size. It is the embodiment of a paper cut, being extremely thin but still extremely sharp. Not only is it sharp, it's also really strong, being able to fell any opponent who tries to attack it with a single swipe from its extremely sharp arms. Don't let that deceive you though, its entire body is razor sharp. Its arms are just somehow even sharper. In fact, it demonstrates this sharpness to us in the Ultra games, where it cleaves through a rock with ease. On top of being strong offensively, it is not particularly weak defensively either, its flat stature making it incredibly hard to hit, but it is quite vulnerable to fire, which makes sense for a Grass Steel type. In the Ultra games, Kartana has a pretty unique world, mostly because it is the only Ultra world that has trainers in it, as there are these two old dudes who are using Kartanas. They almost seem to be in a trance or something, but as far as I'm aware, Kartana does not hold any hypnotic abilities. The Ultra Forest itself is also a pretty cool environment overall, and it feels a lot less alien than any of the other planets, which is obviously because it is inspired by something that does exist on Earth, Japanese rock gardens. This gives the area a bit of tranquility, which is appreciated considering how chaotic the other worlds can feel. As for its Beast Boost, it always goes to its attack stat. And our last Ultra Beast introduced in the original Sun and Moon is UB05 Glutton, or Guzzlord. Guzzlord likes to eat. A lot. It can eat without pause from the moment it wakes up until the moment it falls asleep. Its two tongues, yes, those are tongues, not arms, lash out of its mouth to grab anything within their radius and shove it deep within itself. When objects do land in its mouth, its conveyor-like tongue will move in a wave-like motion to bring food to its throat. Yet despite how much it eats, no one has ever found any waste from Guzzlord of any kind, insinuating its entire purpose for eating is to convert it to energy, which it does perfectly. Apparently, its entire body is made of a material similar to hard rubber, which is not the texture I would assume by looking at it. Its original world, the Ultra Ruin, is yet another fascinating world, but not because of how different it is, but because of how familiar it is. The Ultra Ruin is a destroyed alternative version of Hau'oli City from the distant future. A rusted sign has partial words that can be made out, that mirror the welcome sign for Hau'oli City in the game, and the music is the Hau'oli City theme backwards. But it's not just this city that has been destroyed, it seems this whole world has been, as the man in the Guzzlord suit states that he's never seen the color blue outside of this one computer's screen, implying that the sky is never blue and neither is the water. He also says they used to have a machine that could read the relocation cards, a card that held all the information in humanity, but it at some point the machine broke and cannot be repaired for whatever reason. Advanced technology that has been rendered useless is one of the hallmarks of a post-apocalyptic world. We don't know the exact reason these kinds of things happened, but there is a hint that it had something to do with some sort of power plant. This power plant is detested by the grandparents of the guy in the suit, but he doesn't know why because no one wants to talk about it. It's not much to go on, but I feel like this power plant probably has something to do with the destruction of the world. Surely this isn't like a thinly veiled warning to the public about the dangers of climate change and using fossil fuels. Anyway, Guzzlord is another Ultra Beast whose Beast Boost will go to one of two locations: its attack and special attack. I think most people prefer its attack stat, but let's be real, the standout here is its HP, as it has one of the highest HP stats in the entire game. Bro is almost a Blissey. From here, we move into the second set of Ultra Beasts introduced in the Ultra games, and unfortunately, we know a lot less about these beasts. See, in the original Sun and Moon, you could go to the Aether Foundation and talk to Wick to get a lot more information on the Ultra Beasts than was in the Pokedex. But this feature is not in the Ultra games, at least not for the new Ultra Beasts we get introduced to. So we just have a lot less to talk about, unfortunately. First up, we have Poipole. Poipole is a poison type that is a starter Pokemon on its home world of Ultra Megalopolis. It has the moniker UB Adhesive, which it likely got because it loves to spray people with a sticky poison that it can create within itself and dispense through the spikes on its head. It's another Ultra Beast whose Beast Boost can go to pretty much any of its stats, but it's not exactly going to get much out of its Beast Boost because most people will instead use its evolution. That's right, Poipole is the only Ultra Beast that evolves, and it evolves into Naganadel. Naganadel, or UB Stinger, is a poison dragon type that seems to be inspired by a wasp or some other stinging insect. I mean, just look at the size of its abdomen. That is so wasp-coated. It is capable of storing hundreds of liters of poison within its abdomen, which can be fired from its needles. We don't know exactly how dangerous this venom is, but it appears to glow when it is fired, and it is incredibly sticky. Naganadel also seems to be a Pokemon that is both poisonous and venomous based on its Pokedex entries. In case you don't know the difference, a poisonous organism is one that unloads its toxins when you touch it, and a venomous organism is one that injects the poison into you via a stinger or fangs or whatever. Naganadel is also unique because it's the only fully evolved Ultra Beast to have a base stat total of less than 570, as its base stat total is only 540 for whatever reason. Like, genuinely, why did they not give this dude those 30 extra stat points? It would have made him significantly better. As for its Beast Boost, it can go into either its special attack or speed, but I think most people prefer its special attack. Next, we have the first house everyone builds in Minecraft, aka Stakataka, aka UB Assembly. Unlike most Ultra Beasts, Stakataka isn't just one organism, but hundreds that seem to be working together, kind of like a schooling wishy-washy or that one weird Zelda boss. We can see this by simply looking at some of the official art for Stakataka, which shows us that all of its legs and all of the blocks that make up its body are made of the same one eye block. This sort of insinuates that there isn't really a maximum size for Stakataka, and that if enough of these guys got together, they could become the size of a mountain. Each of the blocks on its body can turn around to act as an eye, which gives it a lot of flexibility in terms of how it monitors its surroundings. Also, not that important, but I just love this little stick figure guy they put here. For Stakataka, its Beast Boost is going in its defense, and you don't really get a say in that. It basically has a worse stamina, but that's probably a good thing because stamina with that defense stat would be just absurd. And honestly, getting a defense boost isn't all that bad for a rock steel type, especially one that gets body press like Stakataka does. And for our last official Ultra Beast, we have Blacephalon. I've always had a weird love for Blacephalon despite his general unpopularity. I think I just love Fire Ghost as a typing, and this weird evil clown guy demonstrates exactly why. Blacephalon, or UB Burst, is one of the weirdest and most horrifying Ultra Beasts of them all. It basically sneaks up on people, then makes its head explode to surprise them, using that opportunity to rob them of their vitality. So, you know, typical ghost type behavior. Unfortunately, that's basically all the information we have on Blacephalon. Much like Stakataka, we don't know anything about its home world, and the Pokedex entries it has are sparse at best. Blacephalon will almost always see its special attack stat boosted by Beast boost, as it's quite a bit higher than its attack stat, which is its next highest stat. Plus, most of the moves you would want to use on Blacephalon are special attacks anyway, so you definitely want to be raising its special attack. Blacephalon is actually the only Ultra Beast to have a signature move, as it gets Mind Blown, a 150 base power fire type move that does 50% of the user's total HP as recoil. It's not that great of a signature move in my opinion, just because that trade-off is so heavy, especially when overheat is also an option and is way less punishing for almost the same damage. But it's still a cool and thematic move regardless. Another fun fact, if you can get Magic Guard on Blacephalon via skill swap or something similar, you will not take any recoil damage when using Mind Blown. Kinda cool, right? While that is all of the Pokemon that are officially classified as Ultra Beasts, there is one more that I want to mention, which is Necrozma, as its classification is unclear. It's surprisingly ambiguous. There are a number of sources that do call Necrozma an Ultra Beast, but there are also a ton that call him Ultra Beast-like, which insinuates that Necrozma actually isn't an Ultra Beast. It also doesn't have its own Ultra Beast Pokemon Go trailer like every other Ultra Beast does, but in some specific pieces of media like the manga or Pokemon Duel, Necrozma is 100% considered an Ultra Beast. And in the trading card game, some forms of Necrozma are considered Ultra Beasts and some forms aren't. So it's really unclear and kind of hard to determine whether Necrozma is or not. But I want to go over him briefly just in case some people think he is. Necrozma, or the Blinding One, is basically the god of Ultra Space. The light we see in Ultra Space originally came from him. The aura that flares to life on Ultra Beasts and Totem Pokemon is also a result of said light. And even the Z crystals and sparkling stones we see in Alola are pieces of Necrozma that have broken off over time or that broke off when it was injured. The Pokemon we know as base Necrozma isn't actually Necrozma, but an injured, depleted form of it. Ultra Necrozma is its true form, but it is unable to maintain this form because the people of Ultra Megalopolis once tried to harvest Necrozma's light for themselves, injuring the Pokemon in the process and making it impossible for Necrozma to retain light, dooming it to a life of constant pain and suffering. This is actually why it is always chasing after Solgaleo and Lunala, as it wants to merge with them in order to live off their light until it's full and can return to its original form for a while, until it runs out of light again and the cycle begins anew. I've already done an entire video on Necrozma that goes way more in depth with its crazy lore, so if you're interested in learning more about this star, there will be a link below. Unlike the rest of the Ultra Beasts, Necrozma does not have Beast Boost, perhaps another sign that it's not actually an Ultra Beast. Instead, it has two abilities depending on its form: Prism Armor and Neuro Force. Prism Armor reduces the damage from super effective moves by 25%, similar to abilities like Rock Solid or Filter, but unlike those abilities, Prism Armor cannot be ignored by other moves or abilities. It can still be changed by moves or abilities that change abilities like Skill Swap or Mummy, and it can also be suppressed by abilities like Neutralizing Gas. Prism Armor is the ability of every form of Necrozma except Ultra Necrozma, which instead has Neuro Force. This ability is basically the foil to Prism Armor because it boosts the damage of super effective moves that Ultra Necrozma uses, which is probably a part of why it felt so strong in the Ultra Necrozma fight. In addition to a signature ability, Ultra Necrozma also has two signature moves: Photon Geyser and Prismatic Laser. Prismatic Laser is the easier one to understand. It's basically a slightly stronger Psychic type Hyper Beam. It does a lot of damage but has a recharge turn. Photon Geyser, on the other hand, is a lot more interesting. This attack does damage based on either the attack or special attack stat of Necrozma, depending on which one is higher. This move also ignores all abilities that would negatively affect it, and becomes light that burns the sky when Necrozma transforms into Ultra Necrozma, which is basically the same as Photon Geyser, but it's twice as strong and can only be used once. In order to transform Necrozma into Ultra Necrozma, it needs to be holding the Ultra Necrozmium Z, which will let it Ultra Burst. And that's everything. If you made it all the way to the end, thank you so much. I really do appreciate it. Be sure to subscribe if you're not already, and I will see you next week for another video.